Welcome to Micromoments of Self-Love. Today we're kicking off Season 2 with a bang, and I couldn't be more excited. I'm your host, Fatema Dewji, and today we're exploring how small, consistent actions can lead to massive change. Get ready for this inspiring conversation on how these small, tiny changes every day can make great transformations to your life. I'm Fatema Dewji, and this is Micromoments of Self-Love. Let's jump right in. Welcome to Micromoments of Self-Love. I'm so excited to have you here. And I think we've had some amazing conversations before this podcast, so I'm just gonna get straight into it. I saw you have a few tattoos. Maybe you can take me through them?
Yeah, I have one, this upside down backpack.
Okay.
What happens when you put things in an upside down backpack?
They fall out.
Yeah. So this is all about living your life in a way that when you have negative situations or negative words on your shoulders, you let them slip off your back. Mm-hmm. It's about not allowing the opinions of other people to change the way you see yourself or the way you live your life. Okay. I have another one right here. It says small, consistent actions, SCA. There's a phrase my teacher taught me in high school that totally changed my life. Okay. And then I have a third one on the inside of my bicep that you wouldn't have seen. Okay. And it says Vincit qui patitur, and there's a phrase from the Bible. Oh, nice. Vincit qui patitur basically means he who endures conquers. Okay. So go through the challenge and you'll come out stronger on the other side.
Okay. Yeah. So it's like a daily reminder, to let go of negative things and take small, consistent actions and just be resilient, right?
Yeah.
So I love this, and I just want to know a little bit about your story. Like, how did you grow up? What were your parents like? Because I think that shapes a person's character so much, So what was your childhood like?
I'm very fortunate that I had very supportive parents from a young age. Mm-hmm. My dad put us in sports. My family put us in sports. We spent lots of time with cousins, aunts, and uncles, grew up with one big family. Okay. I pursued professional soccer from a very young age as a result of falling in love with the game. I got to represent Simba in the jersey. And that became a big part of my identity in my life from the age of 5. We grew up in Scarborough, Ontario, so I'm from Canada. First time in Tanzania, so excited to be here. And I pursued that dream of playing soccer back home from the age of 5 until I was 17. I'm the brother of my sister, Francesca. Half Italian, half Greek, so sports, but also education was big in our household. All their influences had a big impact on me, but more than anything, it was just the way that they loved us and showed us support that had the biggest impact.
Yeah. I think it's so important, like we tend to oversee how your childhood and like the emotional regulation your parents have can have such a big impact on who you become, your confidence, the way you think, And I think, again, you're very fortunate because a lot of people that I mentor, I know they struggle with this. They have parents who don't provide that kind of safe environment for their kids, and then this is where the negative thinking and the self-doubt comes in, So you're very lucky. So can you tell me a bit about what happened after with the football and how did life go after that?
Yeah, so from 5 until 17, every day football. Yeah. Every day after school, 3-4 hours. Yeah. By the time I was 17, I had a full ride soccer scholarship to Memphis University, a Division I school in the United States. Okay. I also spent time in Italy when I was 13, playing with a club called Empoli. Okay. At 17, I ended up having 3 major knee injuries, 2 surgeries, lost a full ride scholarship, went down a pretty challenging path with my own mental health and self-love. Yeah. I stopped wanting to show up to school. I felt useless without the sport in my life. And I was very fortunate that when I was in that challenge and in that low moment, I did have the support of my family. But more than that, I had the support of a human being that I didn't expect. And it's when we don't expect love from someone and they give it to us that it has the greatest impact. Yeah. And that person for me was my high school world issues teacher. Okay. And he would pull me to the side of his desk and he'd say things to me that for him were throwaway phrases, but for me it made a big change. Yeah. Things like, your hard work can't be wasted because it builds your character and your character sticks with you for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. Or he'd say, soccer is just one game, but life is filled with thousands. So if this one doesn't work out, you can start playing a new one. And he taught this lesson about small, consistent actions and challenged us to go in the community and take a small, consistent action to try and change something we were passionate about making an impact on. Yeah. And I didn't care about anything outside of sports, transparently, so I didn't really know what I could do. But walking home, I stumbled upon a piece of garbage. It was not a Mo water bottle though. And one thing led to the next, and we started an initiative where we'd pick up trash with students in our community, and led to doing over 350 events and 3,000 cleanups, and filling 3,000 bags of garbage. Yeah. And I started speaking in schools to recruit volunteers to get involved in our initiative. Yeah. And I fell in love with performing and storytelling to move people emotionally and challenge their thinking or change the way they see themselves. Yeah. And I remember vividly, after doing about 30 or 40 of these presentations, a principal handed me an honorarium, like $50. Yeah. And I only spoke for a couple minutes. Yeah. I started doing the math. I was like, I'm about to retire my family. and I developed a passion for performing, and now realized that maybe it was something I could do as a career path. Yeah. So I went home excited, and I searched speaker on Google, and I called everybody I could find, asked them all these questions. And so for the past 6 years, over half a decade, I've delivered close to 700 paid performances in schools, at conferences, as a result of that first initial excitement and passion speaking in schools.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I know that you basically have put your education on hold right now, right? And you're speaking at schools. So how does that work?
Yeah, I tell students all the time. Okay. Figure out the end goal. Okay. And then chart the best path to get there. Okay. You know, maybe the best path is to go to university. Okay. But if your dream or your goal doesn't have a set guide of steps to bring it to life through a university classroom, your best teacher might be the experience of somebody else who's already went down that pathway. And for me, that was the case. My end goal was to perform in schools and do presentations. And I couldn't find a class or a program in university that was going to help me reach that end goal. Yeah. So instead, I seeked out mentorship. Yeah. And I think that sometimes we discount the power of mentors. I had a mentor in my life who changed everything. His name's Chris. And we see it in movies all the time, right? Yeah. Like Star Wars. Yeah, with Luke Skywalker. If he didn't have Yoda, he wouldn't be who he was. Yeah. But why don't we ever talk about mentorship as a valid way of learning? So I put my university education on hold, and I started picking up the phone and calling schools, 20 schools every single day. And I got told, no, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you don't have the credentials. No, there's no way we're paying you, you're younger than my kids. And I heard every rejection in the book, but the thing I held on to was every time I got a yes. And although I heard no 970 times in that first year, I also got 30 some yeses. And those 30 yeses fueled my self-belief and kept me moving forward. Yeah. But putting my education on pause was a big challenge. And if there's anyone out there thinking that their pathway might be different than everybody else's, my advice is to remind yourself that it's okay. That your path is your path for a reason, and if other people don't understand it, it's not for them to understand. 100%.
I grew up in a very similar household where, you know, you come from a very traditional family where it's like you have to go to school and you have to finish your education, otherwise you're useless. It's like this mindset, right? Yeah. And, you know, for a very long time, like, I don't think it's about the degree. I think, like in anything in life, it's about the journey. It's about learning the discipline to get through the 4 years, right? It's about how your character is built within the 4 years, right? Like the network you build, for example. But now, like, everything is online, you know? I was interested in public speaking, and I basically just took a few courses online, and I YouTubed the best public speakers, and that's it. Like, I know how to speak better, you know? So I think that we have access to so many virtual mentors as well, right? That it's becoming a lot easier to get to that end goal, right? Without having to go through the 4 years. So yeah, I can understand both sides of things. But I also wanted to ask you a little bit I want to ask you something very different. You talked about how you went through this like life-changing injury, and you know you went through a lot of mental health issues, and you struggled. But let's say today someone told you, okay, you know, Sam, you can't speak anymore. Like, what if you were handed another circumstance like this? How would you deal with it?
I think I would deal with it in a similar way that I dealt with soccer. So my schedule went from soccer every single day to absolutely nothing. Right. And my first challenge was, what am I going to fill my time with? So I started saying yes to as many things as I could. Volunteering opportunities, hanging out with friends, trying new things at school, different career opportunities. And in trying as many things as I could, I found something else that I had a passion for. I don't believe our purpose in life is singular. I believe that it changes as we age and as things change in our lives. And so I would say try as many things as you can. Like, that's what I would do if I could no longer speak. And I do have passions for other things right now. I love Latin dancing. Maybe I would start a studio teaching people Latin dancing. I love writing. So if I couldn't speak, I would put a lot of my thoughts on paper. I love sports. So maybe I would put my soccer cleats back on and become a coach. So I think I would ask myself, what are some things that I'm curious about? And if I don't have anything top of mind, I would just say yes to as many things that come across my way as possible, in the hope that I might find something that I enjoy doing.
So would that be your advice for people who are looking for a sense of purpose? Like, what are 3 things, if you're talking to a young 19-year-old who wants to seek the sense of purpose? Because, sometimes we talk about purpose, but it's such a huge idea that's out there, and we're like, oh, we're going to find it in 30 years, the time's ticking, and, we want to find ways to discover our purpose. What are 3 ways that you would suggest someone can use to find their purpose?
Here are the 3 ideas I have to find your purpose. First, simplify the definition. Don't make it this massive thing that's so hard to figure out and define. Maybe your purpose right now in life is to become the best version of yourself and share that version of yourself with the world. Meaning every day you're going to show up and do something, have a micro moment of self-love to move you closer to the best version of yourself. So simplify the definition. Secondly, find a skill that you want to improve at. I feel at my best when I'm making progress, and I think other people that are lacking purpose will also. So choose a new skill set and show up every single day, even if it's only 15, 20 minutes, taking a consistent action to move toward improving at that thing. And then the third thing I would say is give yourself some grace. Don't beat yourself up. It's not going to move you any closer to your goal or dream or in your quest of finding purpose.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I especially love the part about grace. I think sometimes we're so hard on ourselves and we're our own worst enemy, so having that sense of, just self-love and self-forgiveness and understanding that things take time is something I had to learn. I had these goals and I was like, by the time I'm 23, I need to do this, and look, it helped me. It helped me in a lot of ways, but I think it also caused a burnout because there was no sense of grace. It was always go, 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 So this is something I've learned as well, and I think it's amazing.
You know what no one tells you?
Yeah.
No one tells you that achieving your goals doesn't make you happy. Most of the time, it never makes you happy. No. I had a list of all the things that I said I wanted to achieve, and when I achieved them, I thought my whole life was going to change. Yeah. And I checked all the boxes off the list, and I felt more empty than I did before. And what it made me realize is the only happiness I get is from the continual progress that happens from the point where you set the goal and the journey between that point and the point when you actually reach it. Happiness does not come from reaching the goal. It comes from struggling along the way to bring it to life.
Yeah, I love that. And I think the world, unfortunately, it applauds you on your external goals, right?
Yeah.
You don't ever get someone tell you, oh, good job, you've actually built your discipline. Oh, good job, you're so much calmer, you're so much more peaceful. These personal development skills that are these life skills that are actually gonna help you and make you a better person. People don't applaud you on that, and I think we need to really sometimes take a look at and realign ourselves, and focus more on building things like our resilience, our self-love, our sense of discipline. Are we doing better? Are we a better person than we were yesterday, right? And that's the most important thing.
It's so true. I think I've caught myself so many times playing for the points instead of playing for the love of the game.
Yeah.
And whenever I've played for the points, I've burnt out. Whenever I've played for the points, I've forgot about the other human being on the other side of every single transaction. Yeah. And so I couldn't agree with you more. I think the goalposts on what success is needs to be moved.
Yeah. I used to have a merch line called FD The Movement, and one of the shirts said find joy in the journey. And the whole idea is enjoy the process, right? if you're gonna constantly, chase for like getting to the top of the mountain and you're not gonna enjoy the journey up there, you're gonna kill yourself, right?
Yeah.
So find joy in the little things, and be grateful for the moment, that you're in, and be present in the moment. And I think these are things we need to remember.
I love it.
So moving on to the next question, I'm sure you have a lot of mentees as well, and like, I get a lot of people telling me, my brother is a very well-known personality here, and they say, we want to be like Dewji, in like the next 10 years. What are some habits we need to start building today? So let's say someone asks you, I want to be the next Mark Zuckerberg in the next 10 years. What are 3 habits I need to build today?
If you want to take yourself from where you are today to a goal or dream, or become the next big sensation, or be like your mentor, I think 3 habits that are non-negotiable. First is execution. Okay. If someone gives you information and shares their time and energy pouring into you, it is disrespectful not to act on the information they gave you. Especially if you've persistently tried to get in touch with them and reach out, and they finally take a meeting and they tell you this is what you need to do. The best thing you could do is take that advice, act on it within the next 48 hours, and then circle back to that person and say, hey, here's what you told me to do. Here's what I did. Here's the result I got. What's next? That'll instantly reaffirm that person didn't waste their time, and they're going to share more with you. So I would say first and foremost, your intentions don't matter. Your actions do. Right. So please execute. Okay. Secondly, find someone who's done the thing you want to do and become their greatest student. Yeah. So find that Dewji, find that Mark Zuckerberg, find that Chris Cummins, one of my mentors, and become their student. Find ways to provide value in their life, and then ask tons of questions. Okay. And then third, I would say become a never-ending learner. Okay. Like, keep cracking open books, keep listening to podcasts. Yeah. Don't ever think you've arrived. The moment you think you arrive is the moment you stop learning, and the moment you stop climbing mountains. So continue learning, continue growing, execute, and find mentors. Yeah,
I love that. And I want to talk a little bit about learning new things. And I have a different perspective on, there's the intentionality of learning new things, and then there's the information overload. I feel like these days, like I myself, I'm guilty of this. Like you have like 300 browsers open, and you're like watching a YouTube video, and at the same time you're like texting, and you want to do 1,000 things at the same time. And because again, I feel like I'm one of those overachievers who just feels like I have to constantly be doing something. Yeah. So what advice do you have for someone like me?
Yeah, great question. If you feel overwhelmed by information, I would try and simplify. So I would go back to asking myself the question, why am I learning in the first place? Like, what is the end goal of this learning? Is it to just check off a list saying that I've read this many books, or is there an outcome that I'm hoping to improve? So I would say, what is the outcome in your life you're working toward at the moment? If it's becoming the greatest marketer in the world, I would focus all my learning on marketing. Right. If my professional aspiration was to become the best presenter in the world, I would go on Google and search the best 25 books for public speaking, the best 25 books for marketing. And I would start with those resources so that at least your learning is helping you gain specific knowledge. Yeah. It's not just for the purpose of checking it off a list. Yeah. I'll then secondly say most of us have all the information we already need. And we use learning as an excuse to not take the action we know we're supposed to take. Yeah. And you'll know if that's the situation you're in just by hearing me talk about it on this podcast. And if it is you, stop lying to yourself and go and take the action and execute. Right. But if there is a lack of knowledge, you have to fill it. Okay.
No, yeah, that's interesting. I think also in today's world of social media, it's very hard because you get pulled in so many directions as well. And everybody is trying to tell you who to become and how to do something. And now when I'm on TikTok, like my For You page is all like, here are 3 ways to like be more disciplined, and this is how you need to focus better, because obviously I built my For You page like that. But I also feel like social media, to a certain extent, if you get too engrossed with it, you lose your authenticity. So how do you, for example, stay authentic to yourself as Sam, as who you are, your identity, in a world that, is everything's filters, it's not even the filters in a photograph, it's like filters in your personality. Everybody you see online, it's maybe 5% of what they actually are, right? So how do you stay authentic to your true self?
I took acting classes recently as a result of a curiosity to learn something new. And the second class was about authenticity. And our teacher asked us, how do you be authentic? And we all thought about it and gave answers. And after he took all of our answers, he said, any attempt to be authentic is inauthentic. You can't try to be authentic. You just be. And it was this really cool moment where I just sat and, okay, let me just be me. Let me not try. And I took that idea and I used it on stage. And I, for the first time in a long time, had more fun than I've ever had before. And the crowd reaction was like 10 times greater. And so for me, I always try and remind myself, whenever I'm stepping into a room or interacting with other people, I'm not going to try to do anything. I'm just going to be myself and let things come out as they may. And I think that's the thing that I try and remember in those moments.
And I think that the issue right now is that it's becoming quite hard for people to be themselves because of this herd mentality, right? Whether it's like the TikTok dances that all look the same, you know, and in order to go viral, they've made it so that you have to follow everybody else, right? Or even in terms of just yourself and finding out who you really are, you know. I think that it is quite a struggle for people to be their authentic self right now. And I don't know, what advice would you give to someone who's struggling with that, their sense of identity?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, block out the noise. If you find yourself feeling terrible when you go on social media, delete it from your phone. It may not be a permanent solution, but it could be a temporary solution to help you build a better relationship with yourself. So you can return back to social media with a little more boundaries in the future. I had a conversation with my friend recently who's spending a lot of time on social media and finding that it's not making them feel great. So we made an accountability relationship. They've deleted it from their phones and won't be using it for the next 6 to 12 months. I've done a year-long detox from social media myself, even while I was trying to build my business, that I thought wouldn't be able to build if I wasn't public facing. Totally false. I was able to scale my business without having social media, and anybody can. So I would say step one, block out the noise that's making you feel terrible. Step number two, do more of the things that you find joy and excitement doing, whether that's dancing or painting or writing things in a journal or listening to music or playing football. I've repaired a lot of relationships with myself, just letting myself play, like having those moments for play like a kid would. And then I would say thirdly, audit who you surround yourself with. Because the people in your life might be putting all this negative opinions and baggage in your backpack. Because what we consume is not only social media, it's also the conversations we have with family and friends, and the food that we eat, and the TV shows that we watch. So like, get all the stuff out of your life that's not serving you, including people.
It's interesting you talk about play, because I actually took a class at Georgetown, and this professor changed my life as well. His name is Professor Beast. And the class was on imagination and creativity. And he would teach us how to be great leaders through play, through being creative, through having this open mindset, you know. And he said something that stuck with me for until this song. He said, in order to be successful and to be happy, you have to find a purpose that's greater than yourself and to make a difference in the lives of other people. And you know why I like that is because in today's world as well, I feel like people have, because of this, they've isolated themselves so much, you know, and they're very driven in their own selfish desires. And I do truly believe that in order to actually have a fulfilling life, you have to make your purpose greater, right? Because if your purpose is just you, then anything can stop you. If you get into an accident, that's it. That purpose ends, right? If you go through any traumatic event, if you know something goes wrong in your life, that your purpose is so small that it will hold you back, right? So having a purpose that's greater than yourself is something that will keep you going, right? So what are your thoughts on having a sense of purpose, and you know what has helped you kind of align your purpose with yourself?
Yeah, good question. For me, I keep my definition of my purpose really simple, because I feel if I don't, I get lost. And I feel like I have to search for it for the rest of my life. And so every day I wake up and say, I'm going to try and become the best version of myself that I possibly can, so I can share that version of myself with the world and make an impact or help other people. and it's obtainable for me, because for me, becoming the best version of myself is learning a little bit each day. It's improving my mental and physical well-being. And aligning that with everything else that I do in my work, it's the same. So I'm going to become a better speaker, a better performer, so I can do a better job with my profession. I also, every single year, try my best to build in volunteering or giving back in some capacity. For me, it personally fills my cup, and it also has an impact on the people that we serve. So I would say, if you're feeling like your whole life is about yourself, lose yourself in the service of other human beings. Say yes to some volunteer opportunities, and see how it makes you feel. Like, for me, I've never felt more at peace and fulfilled than when I'm helping another human being for no other purpose than just to help. So I think it's had a big impact on my life.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. I feel like, you know, when I went through my own burnout and I had to realign my purpose, I realized that I was finding a lot more joy in, you know, again, a balance, but finding more joy in service and in helping other people than having just selfish goals, you know? And that's something I feel like, you know, with a lot of youth these days, it's quite hard to get across to them, you know, because I think the world is making you a lot more isolated and a lot more selfish, you know. So it's something that, you know, as a mentor, you need to keep reiterating to a lot of youth, you know, how to find a sense of purpose bigger than yourself, you know, and yeah, like how to align yourself in that way, you know.
Something I'll say is this: I think that selfish people suffer, in my personal opinion. They suffer spiritually, in the sense that you might have all the possessions in the world, but internally you're going to be rotting at some point in your life. You're going to have a lack of solid relationships around you at some point. And also, it only brings you so far. I believe that people that are in positions of power and influence are in those positions most of the time for the right reasons. And the right reasons are that they helped and led and served the people around them. So actually, if you want to bring your big, ambitious dreams and goals to life, it starts from a place of service, of looking at the problems around you that you're passionate about solving, which will evidently help people. So being selfish is going to actually hold you back more than it's going to push you forward. So for the young people that are watching this that think that that's the only way to bring your goals to life, it's not.
Yeah, and that's a good way to look at it, even from a business perspective, like, you know, solve a problem. I say that I had a quote here, actually, in my old, it said, solve a problem, don't sell a product. And it's true, whether it's in the business world, in marketing, in life, you know, always choose to solve a problem and to help another person, because that's the best way to get your foot through the door, right?
Yeah, I agree.
I want to talk to you a little bit about your speaking engagement. So, you know, before I met you and I saw that you speak as an entrepreneur, this is your business, right? I was a bit like hesitant, like I've never heard of young speakers making money, you know? So can you tell me a little bit about that journey and like how did you start this business, and what kind of advice do you have for someone, you know, a young entrepreneur who actually wants to get into speaking and make money from it and make a business out of it?
I built a $500,000 speaking career from my basement. Actually, it was my parents' basement. And for someone looking to build a career speaking, here are a few simple steps. First and foremost, fall in love with the craft. Your product is the performance. The better your performance becomes, the more marketable you as a service are. Because they'll tell people, the client that you serve and do a really good job for will tell their friends how great of a performance it was. So your performance becomes your best marketing material. Before you focus on marketing and the website and the copy, focus on the performance, please. Like, that's my one big piece of advice. Secondly, I would say create an amazing video. Now, the better your performance is, the easier the video is to be amazing. So work on the performance and then capture a 3 to 5 minute video clip. It's like a highlight reel of your best moments with some feedback from clients or even people that are sitting in the crowd. And that's what's called a speaker reel. After you have the speaker reel and you have the performance ironed down, then it's about consistent execution on outreach, especially when you get started and no one knows about you. You have to be picking up the phone or sending emails every single day as a non-negotiable. So I would recommend 20 outreaches every single day, whether it's over email or over phone. If you're serious, you can do them over video and actually film personalized video outreach for clients. But I would say those are my 3 big first steps to getting into the speaking game, is to fall in love with the craft, build a great product, which is a speech, then get a great video, and then focus on consistent outreach.
Okay. So can you tell me a little bit about using that, how you raised $4,000 to, you said 4,000, right? To buy shoes for a football
the
team.
fundraiser.
Yes.
So we organized a volunteer speaking tour in Kenya. Okay. We ended up playing soccer at one of the local high schools, and a young man approached me afterwards telling me how much he loves football, but that he can't afford shoes. Yeah. And he said, hey, can you please buy me a pair of soccer shoes, football shoes? And I was like, absolutely. And when we left the school, I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we got the whole soccer team shoes and balls, because there was 30 of them all playing barefoot, and I was playing with them. So I decided that we'd film a video and launch a GoFundMe page. And that night we launched it asking for donations to raise, our goal was at the time to raise $3,000. And we put up a poster on the wall, and every time someone made a donation, we'd color it in, and there was this big progress bar where we were tracking our total donations. And we stayed up until 4 a.m. in the morning on Instagram Live. Every time someone donated $50, we would do 25 push-ups.
Oh, wow. Yeah, keeping it interesting.
We gamified it. We had fun with it. And we actually ended up exceeding our goal. We raised $13,000 in less than 5 hours. And one of the things that we did, which I didn't really talk to you about, was we had the courage to ask people for help. Yeah. It's so important that you have the courage to ask for help. Mm-hmm. Once we hit the $5,000 goal, I reached out to a really big entrepreneur in my life. His name's Dan Martell, publicly on my Instagram story. And I was like, Dan, I know you're a big entrepreneur. I know you got lots of money. I know you like giving back. Put your money where your mouth is. We want a $5,000 donation from you. Once we hit 5,000, we want you to match what we've raised so far. And like 30 minutes later, he posted on his story. He's like, I'm in. The next thing you know, we were at $10,000. And then we raised another $3,000. Like, it was just a beautiful process that all unfolded in the matter of less than 24 hours. It was
amazing.
It was cool, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. No, that story really touched me, and I think it's so nice that you were able to do that and more. You were able to and how one person's story managed to change your entire perspective, on things. So it's really amazing. Good job. But I also want to talk to you a little bit about the risk taking. So it's interesting because I think in your journey you take a lot of risks, like calling out entrepreneurs and making like 100 phone calls a day, and I think that's part of success, right? You have to take risks and you have to be resilient. So again, like, what advice do you have on that? Because I think some people, like myself, when I was starting out, I was a bit scared. I was a bit cautious about taking certain risks. And what is your advice for someone, someone who's watching you right now, and let's say they're at that point in their career where they just need to take a few risks? Like, what's your advice on that?
Every goal or dream that you have is on the other side of an investment of time, energy, and money.
Okay.
So if you're not willing to take that risk and put up some time, some energy, or some money, the goals will always just be on pieces of paper and never become a part of your reality. Okay. Like, every goal requires an investment of some sort. The first coach I hired was $27,000.
Okay.
And it was my entire bank balance.
Oh, wow.
It was all of it.
Okay.
And I remember after I actually wired him the funds up front. Okay. Instead of doing it monthly, because I thought that if I paid him in full, it'd light a fire under me to actually do the work and bring my dream to life. Yeah. But can you imagine the conversations I had with my parents after I walked upstairs?
I'm broke, broke mom. Yeah.
I just sent this man $27,000. My mom was like, what the heck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it was by far the best decision I've ever made.
Right.
Because it lit this insane fire under me to actually take action. Yeah. When people pay, they pay attention. Yeah. It's a belief that I have. Yeah. When you pay, you're going to pay attention. Right. And you can make a payment in time, you can make a payment in energy, or you can make a payment in money. Yeah. And if you don't have money, it's not an excuse, because you can still give your time and your energy. Right. So give what you do have. Right. But understand that if you don't give anything, if you don't invest anything, you're going to stay where you are forever. Things aren't going to change.
Right. Yeah, that's that's an interesting story, because I spoke to you about this, where even when it comes to payment, I used to do so many speaking engagements for free, and my God, I'd have people on their phones, and they just seemed like they were so out of it. And I promised myself like this was going to reduce a lot more. So, what are your thoughts on that? Like, let's say like in any business, someone wants to start off their business and they say like, do a lot of free work first.
Yep.
Do a lot of free, whatever it is, whether it's social media, so have free clients, or what are your thoughts about this?
I think doing work voluntarily, especially at the beginning, is a great strategy. When I first started speaking, I probably did like 40-ish engagements that were totally free. Okay. And it was an opportunity for me to hone my craft, improve the performance, build credibility, gain client testimonials. Right. Once I had all those things in place, it's now a formal business. Right. And a business, the purpose of a business is to make an impact and drive revenue at the end of the day. Right. If you're not making some sort of revenue or income, it's not a business, it's a voluntary project. And so the moment it became a business, it's now a business. If I decide to give back, it's a decision that I personally make. Like the tour in Kenya or the speeches we're doing in Tanzania. So I would say use voluntary work at the start of your journey as an opportunity to hone your craft, to find market fit, to build credibility, to gather testimonials. But once you've done it to that point and you have those things in place and it's a proven entity or you have a proven product and solution, there's no need to do free work anymore. And if someone does insist that you do work for free, you just say, hey, it sounds like we're not the right fit for what you're looking for. I can connect you to somebody else. And I wish you all the best and hope we cross paths again in the future. Yeah.
No, that's important because I did that too as well for my consulting. Like for a good, like 5 years, I was helping small businesses, and then I started creating these coffee sessions called Coffee with Fatema, and that came after COVID.
Okay.
And the reason was I felt like, that fire you're talking about, it was just gone. Like I felt like I needed to do something, and I love mentorship. So I would basically like have these sessions where I'd talk about different topics, whether it's like marketing on a shoestring budget, or how do you create a growth mindset. And then I just have like an open invitation. People would come, they'd pay a little bit of money, just because I wanted people who were actually interested to come, because so many people sign up and then they don't show up. So I'd have them pay a little fee, come, and it was so much fun because it was just 2 hours of me presenting on this topic, and my this passion came from when I was really young. I used to basically, when I was like 5, I would sit in our garage with like a cup of hot chocolate, and I would like just speak to like imaginary people about like random topics, and along the way I'd lost that, so the coffee sessions, I've done 60 now, because it's just something that like I was so passionate about, and it was something that was so interesting. But because I was able to do that, I was then able to charge people, because you're right, I got testimonials, I built my personal brand, people understood what I was doing, and they also understood, like, it's a sense, you're building your value base, through your books, through these sessions, and then now I'm able to charge,
I believe you also build your own self-esteem through 100%. The work. So if no one's hiring you to do the work and you do it for free for a little while, you also prove to yourself that you can do it and that you're valuable. Because at the end of the day, in any business, we will never get paid $1 more than we personally believe we're worth. Ever. No one's ever you're never gonna say my fee is X and the client's gonna say, well, actually, I believe it's more, let me give you an extra 1,000. Usually it comes from our own identity, or how we view ourselves is what we ask for. So do the work. And I would also say this, business is not only about making money. No. And so if there are those moments where you do feel called to give back and do free work, do it. Absolutely. But make sure it comes from a place of genuine love and intent and excitement, not because you feel like no one's going to pay you for your services. I don't want someone to fall into the trap of just doing free work for the rest of their life because they feel like they have to. Like, I always think about this. How is it that there are billion-dollar corporations that exist in our world that profit off of people purchasing cigarettes or purchasing products that harm, like that hurts people. Like the end user is not benefiting from the product.
Yeah.
And then why is it that there's someone else who is doing great work or consulting work or other forms of entrepreneurship who believe, oh, I can't get paid a profit because I'm doing something good, and if I'm doing something good, it has to be done for free.
Yeah. But I also think that you have a very healthy sense of self-love. And I think a lot of people are crippled by self-doubt. And I think that that's something that maybe we can discuss because, this is one of the topics that keeps coming up. When you don't believe in yourself, it comes from somewhere, right? And there are people who've put in the work, but they just feel like, no, I don't deserve this, or, I can't make this happen. And that's what separates the people who are going to be highly successful in every way, whether it's mentally, whether it's financially, in every way, compared to the people who are going to be left behind. So how do you build that belief system? We talk about micro moments on this podcast, and I talk about self-love. And my concept of self-love is loving yourself is, again, this kindness to yourself, right? It's what steps are you taking every single day to do better? To also be forgiving of yourself when you make mistakes, right? So what do you feel are steps you take every day to kind of build your self-love, and in order to create this identity that you have where you respect yourself highly, where you can say, you know what, I actually deserve to be paid like $500,000, and I'm gonna reach out to a client and ask for that money.
I have daily non-negotiables.
Okay.
If you're struggling with your self-love, set up a list of daily non-negotiables and make a commitment that they have to be non-negotiable, meaning there's no reason why you don't follow through with these things. And of course, there's days where some of them will slip, and you have to give yourself self-love on those moments. Yeah. But if the majority of the time you keep them in place, it'll change your life. And my coach, I have a coach named Dan Martell, and he gave me a few of them. Okay. So number one, move your body, exercise for at least 45 minutes a day. And that could mean something different for everybody else, but find something that works for you. Yeah. Secondly, do a little bit of learning. He recommends 10 pages, and 10 pages is a really little amount. If you're looking at reading a book, maybe it's 15 minutes. Or you could listen to a little bit of a podcast that's going to move you closer in building a skill or improving a skill you're currently learning. The third one is journaling. This is more of a personal one for me, but I believe that a life worth living is a life worth capturing. So crack your journal open at the end of each day and make some notes and observations about people you met and conversations you had and how you felt and lessons learned. I think it's the most beautiful gift you can give a family member at the end of your life is a collection of your journals and all your personal experiences. I think a fourth lesson or daily non-negotiable, if you're having self-doubt related to your business, is a consistent outreach strategy. So if you're wanting to speak more, are you reaching out to 15 to 20 people per day? And if you are doing those things, and those things are consistently in place, over time, I believe it changes the way you see yourself. The moments when I'm the most doubtful of myself is when I'm not working out each day, is when I'm not keeping my personal promises. We make promises to so many people in our lives, and we try our best to keep the promises that we make to other human beings because we respect them, and we know that if we break them, there's going to be a consequence. But isn't it funny that the one person whose promises we break the most often is ourselves? Yeah. It's like if we just kept our promises the same way we kept our promises to other people with ourselves, everything in our own self-image, I believe, would start changing. Yeah. So if you're experiencing doubt, make a list of daily non-negotiable habits and stick to those things to the best of your ability, and over time you'll see a shift.
Yeah. I always say this, that for me self-love is self-discipline. And in order to create a relationship with yourself where you trust yourself, you have to stick to the promises you make to yourself, right? And for those people who are struggling, because there were certain things I was struggling with, like I had to, do a lot of breathing and yoga in order to calm my nervous system. And that's something I used to have challenges with. Not going to the gym, because that was something very easy for me. Reading was easy for me. Learning was easy for me. But those are the things I used to struggle with. Yeah. And what I would do is keep a timer of literally 2 minutes at the beginning, 2 minutes, and I would struggle through those 2 minutes to do the breathing and do yoga just for 2 minutes. And I would make sure I'd get it done. And then the next day was 3 minutes, and the next day was 4 minutes. And before you know it, like I started enjoying it so much. But most importantly, I was so proud of myself for like sticking through the promises I made to myself. You know, by the end of the month, I was like, oh great, this is amazing. You know, I actually, you know, I have so much more self-respect and self-love, you know. And I think people in this day of social media where, you know, self-love is like, I'm gonna go do my nails and I'm gonna go do my hair. Like, yeah, all that is important, you know, like take care of yourself, of course, but take care of your inner world, you know, take care of your, you know, the respect you have for yourself, you know, stick to good habits, you know, eat better, you know. And nowadays with everything online, you don't even have an excuse. You can learn everything online, you know. And you, again, micro moments, do a little bit every day, because that's the most important thing, right?
Yes. Self-love is not a bubble bath.
No.
Self-love is looking at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and facing the truth. And if the truth is not something you're currently proud of or excited about, it's having the courage to change that. I believe that's what self-love is.
Yeah, it's absolutely, you know. And I think another thing about self-love these days is that it's because everything is so glamorized on social media. A lot of us, we struggle to love ourselves because we are constantly comparing ourselves to other people's highlight reel, as they say, right? And you know, this is where, for me, my social media is literally just my work. My purpose with social media, and this is what I also advise people who are struggling with mental health and social media, is what is your purpose to be on social media? Are you there to create content? If that's it, do that, right? If you're there as an influencer, then create the right kind of content to become an influencer to get the gigs you need to get, right? But for me, it's just adding value, right? And that's all it's ever gonna be. I don't use social media for my personal life. I don't feel like I need to share my personal stories in terms of, like, you know, my family or my relationships in order to be there, you know. So that's another thing that kind of I feel has protected me in so many ways, you know, just kind of kept me in my own bubble in many ways, you know. So I don't know what your thoughts are on social media, and like how in today's age, what people can do to kind of also have that balance.
I think in 99% of situations, social media is used as a waste of time.
Yeah.
It's a way to fill space that we don't want to fill with what we know we actually have to get done.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking from personal experience. Like, there are days where I know I need to do certain things and I don't want to do those things, so I'll reach for my phone. And it's almost like an instant reaction.
Yeah.
I would say get clear on your purpose about why you're using the platforms, like you just mentioned.
Right.
I think that's a great piece of advice. For me, I recognized that I had an unhealthy relationship with social media a few years ago, so I deleted all the apps and stopped using them for a full year.
Right.
My biggest hesitation was thinking that my whole business is going to fall apart. No one's going to know about me. I'm going to become irrelevant.
Yeah.
But every single day, I focused all my effort and energy, instead of being on social media, on revenue generating activities and building relationships with people. So I'd make phone calls and I would message clients and I would reach out to more schools and I would focus on my speech and I would focus on my marketing, and things grew. So I think sometimes we convince ourselves the water is greener, the grass is greener on the other side, but the grass is greener wherever you water it.
Yeah.
So just change your intention, change your focus, change your actions, and things will change. Regarding comparison, I had the same challenges in my life when I first started.
Yeah.
I compared myself to the Les Brown of the world. I compared myself to the Tony Robbins of the world.
Yeah.
And it made me feel like crap.
Yeah.
And what I realized was, if you're at day 1 of your journey and you're comparing yourself to somebody else who's at day 10,000, of course you're going to feel like garbage. Yeah. That person's been doing it for 100 times or 10 times longer than you have. So don't compare your first step to someone else's 10,000s. It's just going to make you feel behind. Instead, compare your first step to their first step. Yeah. Figure out what they did when they were at where you are right now. That's going to be your best, comparison and your best piece of advice to move you forward.
Yeah. And I also feel like, this is something we talked about, but figure out who you want to become. Yeah. Don't figure out what you want to do, right? If you want to become a more resilient person, then, you know, like build that skill, right? If you want to become a more peaceful person, then build that skill, right? And I think this is one of the tragedies of today, is that we all want to become successful, and we all want to, but what does that mean? What does success mean? You know, and sometimes success just means I want to be happy, you know, like my husband, he's the type of person where, you know, like we're so different in that way, because when I met him, he was like, dude, like I am, you know, he's someone who just wants to enjoy his life. You know, he's a very grateful person, lives in the moment, you know, never complains, never has anything negative to say. He's just a very positive human being. And I was like, what is wrong with this guy? like I'm like sitting here complaining constantly, you know, like not grateful for the things in front of me, you know, not living in the moment. And it's only through years of like, now I'm like, okay, I want to actually become a peaceful person. And what I actually did is, on all my mirrors at home, I wrote down, I am peace. Because I just keep reminding myself, look, this is what I want to become. This is what I want to become, you know? And this is one of the most challenging things for me, because I felt like, because I was doing so many things, there was so much chaos in my body, you know? And so again, you know, I like having met him, and, you know, just spending time with someone like that, I feel has completely changed my trajectory in life. But most importantly, I feel like it's made me a better leader. When you're peaceful and you take decisions calmly, and you actually think before you react, you know, it also makes you a better leader. You are able to meet challenges better. You know, you're not sporadic, you're not constantly reactive to people, you know, and having that kind of clear mind helps a lot.
I absolutely agree, and I'm wondering where I can find myself a friend like your husband. I think that who we surround ourselves with really matters, and who we choose to spend our life with really matters. And for me, I'm fortunate that I have some friends in my life who have similar impacts. And there's also books I've read that have been really inspirational. One of them is called The Surrender Experiment, and I read it recently. And it's about letting go of your personal preferences and allowing the world to bring you on your next adventure or journey just by saying yes to things. Things that oftentimes you would say no to or complain about. And that book's been very inspiring in finding peace and joy in what previously would have been challenge. And I'll give you an example. We were in the middle of our speaking tour in Kenya, and we had nothing on the calendar the next morning, and we woke up the next morning, and around 10 a.m. we all got knocks on our doors from one of our friends, and he's like, we have an event in 3 hours, we got to go right now. And we were like, what? Where is it? He's like, it's a 3-hour drive away. And I was like, we didn't know we were doing a 3-hour drive right now. Like, we're going to be late. And all these things came up in my head. And I was like, Sam, just surrender. Just say yes, change your clothes, and go. And in the past, I would have chosen frustration. I would have chose anxiety. I would have chose annoyance. And I would have ruined the whole day because I chose those emotions. Instead, I chose happiness, and I was like, the world knows this is what we need to do better than my personal preferences do. I'm gonna just go and see what happens. And that day, we ended up meeting a lady named Rose who was selling mandi choma at the side of the road, and it was for 20 shillings per corn, and we surprised her with 500 shillings, and she started bawling her eyes out. And it was this human, heartfelt moment that I'll never forget for the rest of my life. And if we didn't go that day because I was frustrated and annoyed, I wouldn't have had that experience, and we wouldn't be talking about it on the podcast right now. And it was probably like one of the 3 top most beautiful experiences I've had since I've been here.
No, I love that, you know, and I think it's so important that, you know, you take life, you know, as it comes, like whatever comes, you be okay with it. It's a very like a stoic mindset, right? Just be okay with whatever is coming. But this is something I think that can be built, you know. It's maybe what advice do you have for people who are in a negative loop, you know, who tend to, like, their first kind of reaction is, oh crap, like this is, I don't want to do this, or like, you know, this is an inconvenience to me. What kind of advice do you have for someone to kind of pause and have another reaction?
I would say start by saying yes to one thing each day that your personal preferences would have said no to previously.
Okay.
So if every single day your mom, if you're young, your mom might say, hey, you want to go for a walk with me, honey? And you're like, no, Mom, I'm busy. Tomorrow, just for the first time, choose happiness and just say, yeah, let's go for a walk. And recognize that going for a 20-minute walk is not going to stop you from all the other stuff you have to do. And see how it makes you feel. And I would assume that if you're like me, you're actually probably going to enjoy the experience, and it'll open you up a little more to saying yes to other things in your life that maybe you would have said no to in the past. Secondly, I would say recognize that initial knee-jerk reaction is not actually you, it's your thoughts and your mind. And you don't have to identify with all the thoughts you have. You can let them fly by and float by. It's difficult at first, and I believe you build that muscle by every time you have a thought, you remind yourself, this is just a thought. I don't have to choose it or identify with it. Easier said than done, but I think those are two things I would start with.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's true. I feel like sometimes, we get so caught up in our emotions, and we're, it's also this negative loop that we live in, that we need to sometimes pause. That's helped me a lot. Sometimes pause before reacting to something, or pause before making a decision about someone, or a situation, and this has helped me a lot as well, because I read about the burnt toast theory.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's this whole idea that, sometimes when you burn your toast, that time it takes you to, what is it called? Like toast another bread. That time actually could save your life, or it could change the trajectory of your life, And it's so true, because we don't look at it like that. And if we look at it from a spiritual lens, where whether it's God or the universe is actually there to help you, to aid you to be the best version of yourself, or to give you the best opportunities, it would actually make your life feel so much more like blessed, right?
Yeah.
So this is something that's helped change my mindset a bit.
I love it. I'm going to stop burning my toast, though.
So since you're wearing a Simba jersey, I want to know who's your favorite Simba player.
Yeah, you know what? This is a tough one. I have a few folks that are top of mind for me, but I think I'm going to have to say it's probably Shabalala.
Right.
Yeah, he's a leader on the team, left, strong defensive player, and I really look up to him. Yeah.
Okay. Fantastic. Okay, so what's the most courageous thing you've ever done in your life?
Made the decision to show up for myself as much as I show up for other people.
Okay. If you could have dinner with any 3 people, dead or alive, who would they be and why?
First one, hands down, my grandfather, who passed away when I was 13. He never got to see me as anything else outside of a soccer player. I didn't get to ask him the deep questions about his childhood and life, so that would definitely be the first one. The second one would be Russ, the rapper and entrepreneur. He's a big inspiration of mine. I consider myself not a fan, but a student of his work, and I would love to ask him a ton of questions about the businesses he's built and his independent career in music. And the third person would probably be Andre Pirlo, who's one of my favorite football players who's now retired. I would just love to hear about his habits and his life. He's very undocumented.
Very interesting. What's the one book that changed your life?
I think there is not one book that changed my life. And we live in a society that loves talking about the one book that changed their life. Yeah. But if I had to choose one book that's been very influential, there's a book by Jim Rohn called Leading an Inspired Life. And it is, in my opinion, one of the best books ever written on self-development. It's had a big impact and imprint on me.
Okay, very nice. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice I ever received is to not take advice from people that aren't in positions that one day you want to be in. Okay. It would be foolish for a pilot to ask a passenger to fly the airplane. So why do we spend all of our time and energy asking people in our lives for their opinions when they're not doing the thing that we want to be doing one day?
Very nice. Okay. So I know you've been trained to be very intelligent and answering these, but but what's your guilty pleasure?
My guilty pleasure, Latin dancing. I don't even know if that counts, but you catch me on a beach with live music and I'll start a dance party. Okay. In fact, we were just in Zanzibar and there was live music and everyone was so nervous to dance. And I looked at my friend Zian, I was like, bro, I'm going to go up there by myself and start dancing.
And you did?
And I did.
Oh, nice.
And it was hella awkward for the first 10 seconds. But then everyone else stood up. And like before we knew it, we had 50 people in front of this guy playing live music. And it was like a mini concert. And it made me realize life is filled with followers. People that are waiting for just one person to have the courage to get up there and get started. And if that person could be you. And so I would say like dancing, I love it. Absolutely love dancing. I also really love Lindt chocolate. Yeah, Lindt chocolate's like a big one. I'd say those are probably my big two.
Yeah, I think you're a big risk taker, and I think everyone needs a little bit of that in their life, just take the risk, Yeah. And what's the one habit you're trying to break? Any small habit you have that you want to change?
I think emotional reactions to things. I think I do a pretty good job, but I still catch myself here and there having emotional reactions. And it's mostly to the people that I love and care about the most, which is the most frustrating.
Yeah.
I think because I have such close relationships, I let my guard down in that regard a little bit more than I would with a stranger or a client.
Yeah.
So working on that, my emotional reactions with family and friends.
Can I give you some advice for that?
Please.
Okay. What really helped me is breathing. Just every single day, just one, breathing, like doing box breathing or any like diaphragmatic breathing.
Cool.
It kind of resets your nervous system. Two, kind of also when you're meditating in the morning and affirming the kind of person you want to become. So for me, that was a very peaceful person because this is something I've struggled with, is a reaction. And three, like at the end of the night when you are journaling, like try to figure out where these reactions are coming from. Because if there's something that's triggering you, it's because you are being triggered. There's something in that other person that they've said or they've done is triggering something of a self-belief in you. So these are three things that have really helped me.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so what's the one app on your phone you can't live without?
Currently, right now, it's Runna. I'm training for a marathon.
Oh, nice.
Okay. And I know nothing about training for a marathon,
Good.
but I downloaded this app and it builds a plan for you and I'm following it every single day.
Okay.
Outside of that app, because it's just a time-sensitive answer, I would say Insight Timer. It's a meditation app and I love it.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, and last one. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
The ability to speak every language.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I personally love traveling.
Yeah.
But it's frustrating when I can't participate in certain conversations because they don't speak English.
Yeah.
And I can't expect everyone to speak the language I speak. That's just a privilege, or a privileged perspective. I think it would be so cool if I could talk to people from every different corner of the world and understand the richness in their language and hear about their experiences.
Maybe that's a goal you can work on.
Yeah.
Do one Duolingo course every few months, That's awesome. Okay, just the last question to end this really, really wonderful discussion. I think you shared your perspective on so many things, and very actionable steps that people can take, to build better habits, to be more disciplined. What is one piece of advice you have to our viewers on, maybe a sense of self-love, like how to cultivate a better sense of self-love?
Find something to be proud of every single day that you've done, even if it's so small. I think that celebrating ourselves before we wait for other people to celebrate us is one of the best ways to build self-love. And it's something that I don't do enough myself. This is why I'm giving this advice, because I believe we often give the advice we need to hear the most. So I would say find something every day that you can be proud of that you've done and give yourself a little round of applause for it. That's
good. That's really good. I try to integrate that into the journal I created called Micromoments of Self-Love, because I think it's so important to celebrate small wins, to, list the things you're grateful for, because again, it changes your perspective on life. You become a more positive person and you, again, start to cultivate a relationship with yourself when you don't have one, So thank you again, Sam. It was wonderful speaking to you. And I can't wait to see the amazing things you do, honestly. And I'd love to invite you back to Tanzania next year. Maybe you can come and do some speaking engagements here at our schools and make a difference.
Thank you very much.